Welcome
Hey,
to
hey.
episode 21 of the Kids Health series with Lawrence August. Hey, Lawrence, how are you?
21. What's up, Heidi? I get so pumped up when I hear that countdown music.
It's like
I'm just like I feel
chugging
like I'm like,
water.
yeah, I feel like I'm like the Bulls players from the 90s or something coming down the tunnel right now. I'm ready to do it. Number 21.
Weren't we so
And
blessed to be in Chicago in the 90s?
we were
Seriously, it was
we
so
were
cool.
for these kids, I end up getting in little battles with these youngins online in these basketball forums. I'm a big,
Oh my gosh.
obviously a big Jordan fan,
Oh
and
gosh, yeah.
a lot of these kids, they're not even. I mean, they never saw him play. Some of them weren't even born,
I know, and
until
they
after
like
he
the
retired. It's crazy.
shoes. Yeah, they talk
Yeah.
about them all the time, and I've been sharing stories with them because those were my little club days, and Rodman used to hit on my good girlfriend, and he would he would call our little pagers, and he tried to give us playoff tickets, but she wouldn't go. I'm like, "Take the tickets." She goes, "That means I'm a whore." Wait, this is a children's show.
I was at here trivia. Quick little trivia. I was at Dennis Rodman's 35th birthday party back in the day.
Was that
At
Crowbar?
It was at Crowbar.
I used to
Yes,
work there. Yay.
and it was at Crowbar.
Yes.
Eddie Vedder saying happy birthday. I was there. Long story we don't need to get into, but yes, the 90s. Anyway,
Kids
Heidi,
health, health, health.
as we
Here we are today.
just kind of wander off into
Well, case
but
being
let it
said,
be.
with health, we
Yes,
traversed the 90s, and here we are.
exactly. Let it be known that you can, maintain your health well into advanced age. And here
Yes.
we are, Heidi, older and wiser.
Older and wiser with so many memories in our pocket. Okay.
Yes. So 90s Bulls, unbeatable, best intro music. But I would put this StreamYard countdown music like close second, man. I would get pretty hyped up.
That's awesome.
And before we dive in, we've got to do
Oh gosh, we haven't done
our
it in my new
is
little
it let's do it.
setting
Yeah,
here.
no,
Okay.
Heidi's in a new location, but that shouldn't throw off too much.
Yeah.
I loosened up for this. All
I
right, here
know.
we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey, that's pretty damn good.
Okay.
High five.
If you say so.
And we also, it's episode 21, and it's about 1 year-ish since we had our first episode. So not too bad, knocking out, 21 of these in about a year. I can't
That's
believe
really
it.
cool. Yeah, it's been
It
nice
is
and
really cool.
consistent. And I wanted to any of my pals out there, I know we're going to see some of our buddy Nate. I know Mr. B's going to be in the house.
Mhm.
And I know my sweet little pal Michelle. Our friends, thank you so much for showing up for us because it feels good and we're honored and selflessly doing this. And if you don't mind hitting share there, because unfortunately, Lawrence and I have been sharing our truths and our beliefs for some time, and we are so heavily suppressed that it's hard to get this rolling out to those that we know could benefit. So hit that like and subscribe.
2024, we're dialing everything up. Get ready, kids.
Yeah.
Get ready. We're coming guns blazing into 2024.
Well, sir,
So
how's your headlines looking?
the headlines, has been a pretty juicy time here. Let's go to, yes, check it out. Instagram. For those who use the Instagram, Kids Get Healthy USA. Kids Get Healthy USA. You're gonna find me. Let's go to share screen.
Let's go to the board.
What are we doing here? Let's take it to the board.
There it is.
Here. Bam. The magical grid of truth.
Magical grid and my notes.
And Heidi's got some notes, but yeah, it's been a pretty fun last couple of weeks in terms of headlines. There's a lot going on in the world of health, kids' health, mental health.
And I want to share before we pick one, Lawrence, why I'm so appreciative. And for anyone newly watching, there's some heavy headlines. Like it depends on your perspective when you're reading this. You could really go, oh my gosh. Or you could be like, okay, how do we handle this? Or what's another perspective? So we like to give a little Hopium our perspective on it because I do believe there's solutions out there.
Correct. And, unfortunately in this day and age, the things that are, you're competing with a whole lot of clickbaity stuff. And human beings, we are tend to be drawn toward those things that we need to be on alert for. Let's say negative problems, if you will, but there are
Mhm.
always solutions. And honestly, we have to kind of know what we're up against. And again, what I hope to do with all these episodes, what Heidi and I think what we've been doing is really looking at it holistically and saying, like, yeah, there's going to be all these different problems, but there's a few basic things that we always go back to. And that's what I remind everybody is, it's all about the basics. And so, as we dig in here, it's typically just going to be, let's get back to basics, and a handful of things can, 3 or 4 or 5 tips can knock out 100 problems, right? And that's
Mhm.
kind of the way I see it. So,
Amen. The
yeah.
roots.
So, what you got, Heidi? Where do you want me to point
Well,
the
you're scrolling down, and my 2 stars are because terms I hear often. Well, one that I really started was the independent play one, because
Sure,
that's a
sure.
goodie, because with Steiner and with the homeschooling and things like that. I want you to share your perspective, and I might
Well, yeah,
have a
let's
story that
talk
gets
about this.
triggered.
So this was a pretty cool article. It was an article slash a podcast. So it was on Scientific American. It's a great listen. And it's about is too little play. Well, one is too little play hurting our kids, but specifically, independent play, what they would call unsupervised play. Great quote here. It's not just moderate evidence, it's overwhelming evidence that if you take away children's opportunities for independent activity, they're not going to learn uh, how to be independent. They're not going to learn how to be independent, and that's going to lead them to be, anxious, depressed, fearful about the future, and all the things that we're seeing now. And so, it's just kind of a team of experts weighing in on this. If you look here, some of the data on here and main points, mental health, right, declining. They looked at mental health decline in this conversation from 2010 to 2020, right? And again, we've talked about this before, the last few years, these numbers have sadly even gotten worse, but suicide becoming the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. This is heavy stuff, right? As you said,
Yeah.
this is very heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It looked at a decline in unsupervised play and independent activity since the 60s is linked to rising rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Play fosters immediate mental health and teaches problem solving, negotiation, resilience. Various factors, including social media and technology, may contribute to mental health declines. Opinions on causation differ among experts. Secure attachments in childhood and addressing societal views of young people's capacities are proposed solutions. Take home message. Independent activities, especially play, are crucial for children's mental health, fostering autonomy, competence, and relatedness. A shift in societal views of young people's capacity is needed to provide opportunities for growth and independence. The impact of factors like social media on mental health require careful consideration, potential intervention. So, Heidi, yeah, obviously this is an area where you're, I'm sure, very passionate about, and the work that you do and your understanding of this. I'd love to hear that mom's perspective. I certainly have, my point of view. I mean,
Mhm.
I've talked about this before, learned helplessness, right? This idea
Mhm.
that you're sort of like, you're literally teaching children to be helpless. And that's obviously the opposite of what we're trying to do. There is a fine line, between safety, of course, um, and sort of, helicopter parenting that,
Mhm.
that we hear about. But it
Mhm.
is important to allow your child to explore, let them get
Yes.
into situations of problem solving and imagination, right? Where, old school toys, I'm a big fan of, by the way, when it comes to this kind of stuff, just blocks and bricks and,
Yes,
you know,
classic. Mhm.
classic toys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think pre 1980s for toys, right? And
Yeah.
these classic toys are available online,
Yeah.
where, tactile function is encouraged. Um, And again, I think
Pre-plastic.
yes,
Pre-plastic and
exactly.
pre-form.
Wood
Like, you'll get a
blocks.
toy and it's already done for you. Yeah. You have the old school toys, you're creating the fun
Right.
yourself.
Right. But
Mhm.
Heidi, what's sort of your take
Well,
on
I had so many thoughts at once, but the meaning, I had been in a position once where I remember I had an old friend. My kids were very young, and I was a stressed out single mom. And I worked, but when I was with them, I was doing everything. And I remember being at their house, and I went to go do something and the mom started laughing at me. And she goes, "You do everything for them." And I was like, "What?" Like, thinking I don't, like, I'm never there for them, and all the guilt and the shame. And I go, "I do." And then I started to pay attention. And then sure enough, we're in situations. I'm like, my kids were helpless, like cutting their food or like things that they could have, should have, would have known. And so I started pulling back and I started observing. And now today, as an educator and a parent who's been on this more of a holistic path for a while, and with these homeschool Waldorf kids, you find a park with Waldorf kids because they're dangling by the trees, they're over in the creek,
right.
the moms are talking, and like, oh yeah, they're over there.
Right.
They trust their children, and these children get in those situations of fright or flight almost. Like,
Yeah.
they get to be in a situation of whoa, and they think. And that's where you want them to be. It's not like I wish upon our generation to be latchkey kids. I mean, it's nice to know your mom is near, but it's a trust that's built. And there's videos that go around of babies like climbing ladders, and
Yeah.
it's not like you're holding their butt climbing. You're letting them
Right.
feel a slip, and you're letting them feel these things while navigating. I think it's important for cognitive skills to develop, basically.
It is, yeah, and this is where we use what you're speaking on. We can use the body, to engage the mind, right? And
That's
and
it.
playground
Yeah.
equipments. It's pretty cool where I live down here. In the South Bay, a lot of the parks around here are upgrading their playground equipment, and a lot of these different, climbing setups and ropes and zip lines and really interesting features that they're adding. I love it. Um,
Cool. Hmm.
and I think that that's a great example of that, where you're kind of letting them take on those climbing challenges. And um,
Yeah.
eh, when they're in their body, I mean, a lot of good things can happen. And I always say that to adults too. It's like, when we're in our head with something, anxiety, depression, you can't use your head to get out of that. You need to get into your body. And what that might mean breathing, it might mean walking and movement. But our heart contains so much energy, and when we're kind of in the body, in the heart, that heart energy can overwhelm in a positive way. When I'm saying overwhelm, I'm meaning it in a positive way, can really move that charge of energy upward. Whereas when we're trying to kind of think our way out, it doesn't hold true. The opposite, right? You can't just kind of
Hmm.
push your head down into your body and think, and so we want to kind of use our body to alter our mood in a positive way.
Yeah. I
And I
love
think
that. Mhm.
this actually goes nicely along
I
with the
know.
snowplow
Were you gonna
parenting.
go to snowplow? I wanna say one more quick thing too, is
Sure.
boredom is good. Like,
Yes.
it's okay. Let your child be bored. Say, "Okay, I hear you're bored. Go be bored." Some of my son's most creative projects came out in his fits of, "I'm so bored," and it's like 10 minutes later, all of a sudden, he's, like, hammering or doing something. So boredom is good. But I was gonna say this
Boredom
segues into
is good.
snowplow.
Yes, boredom is a wonderful thing. And when
Mhm.
when we've constantly feel like we have to fill up every moment, and we all can take that advice, right? You don't need to fill
Yeah,
up every
with
moment
anybody.
with something.
Yeah.
In fact, that is a great example of how dopamine, you keep going, and you kind of continually want that, surge of dopamine. And
Mhm.
eventually, your level of happiness declines. And that is a
Yeah.
big, big cause of depression, is this kind of lack of boredom, if you will, right? You're just
Mhm.
constantly trying to stay stimulated. It's
Mhm.
just not how we're wired. We need that time to allow our imagination to go off and to be in our subconscious, and to just kind of, you know, uh, tune away from all the stimulation. So this other post I put up, Kind of goes right alongside the same
Yeah,
sort of
it does.
idea.
Mhm.
This was a great article. Mark Travers, a psychologist, calls out the failings of snowplow parenting and cites some research. But while the intentions of snowplow parents come from a good place, the long-term impact on mental health cannot be overlooked. Again, lack of autonomy, learned helplessness, and difficulty regulating emotions are just a few of the potential consequences. So with snowplow parenting, um,
Is that like
th-
helicopter parenting? Is
it's
that
similar, right? So
okay?
what we're talking about with kind of helicopter parenting is that kind of direct, hands-on, watching over closely style parenting, right? With snowplow parenting, it can mean, trying to laying out the path, right? Like a snowplow lays out the path to make everything easier. So it's literally
Okay.
like
Oh, I
setting up
get.
every
Yep.
single thing like, okay, here's a car. Here's this. Here's spending money for this. I'm going to pay for the best. I'm just going to make sure that you have the best, the best, the best of everything, right? I don't want you to
Gotcha.
feel a single molecule of discomfort,
Oh my
right? You're going
gosh.
to be just perfectly like everything is going to be set for you,
Oh no. I wouldn't want
right?
one of those students.
Right, and so it's that constant, as I say, constant, parental, intervention, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so this sends the message that challenges are, insurmountable alone, right? And so you actually just create a very, very sad situation for the child, difficulty regulating emotions, right? So if you're shielding the child from the ups and downs of life, that actually hinders emotional resilience, right? Yeah, can lead to difficulty managing feelings, impacting mental health. Um, so this ties right alongside it, right? We're kind of talking
Yeah.
about the micro short term and the macro long term, but
Yeah.
enough helicopter parenting mixed with this kind of snowplow thing. Essentially, the child's going to
Yeah.
just be left to the wolves. It's like taking a
Yes.
domestic cow's cat and throwing them into
Yes.
the jungle. That's
Or
basically what it is.
or the mom's basement or just going, I don't know what to do. They
What do
don't
I
know what to
do?
do with life or and be inspired. Everything you're talking about though, it feels like it's naturally going towards a pretty alarming statistic, but the internet addiction with kids. Like that
Yeah.
goes with because you were talking dopamine and stuff, and they're getting the drug now with this kind of stuff.
Right.
Internet,
So
right?
so we're talking about the internet addiction. This post here, right? So
Yeah. It's so
this
bad.
actually had to do with concerns of parents. And so right now, this is fascinating because it's always been an issue. Substance addiction, right, has always been a big concern of parents. But what this actually showed, which was interesting, was a study in JAMA. Um, Twice as many parents reported specific concerns about internet addiction than substance
Mm,
addiction.
wow.
Now, obviously, they're both problematic, right?
Yeah.
But when we look at the pandemic that boosted internet use, right? So teens doubled screen time during
Mhm.
these last few years. I mean, doubled?
And they were
It's
shown
it
it's okay because they were doing school on it. So,
7
mm,
points, yeah, normalization. This
yeah.
is kind of the term, right? 7.7 hours daily
Oh my
on
gosh.
internet use.
Yeah.
And again, here we go. We look again, broken record time, but okay, Surgeon General warning, they're warning tech companies to kind of clean up their act. There's legislation, right, that might block kids under 13. All fine, but let's take it in our own hands. I think that's let's not sit back and wait for laws to pass or as parents,
Yeah.
as a society, let's just kind of step up and do what we need to do without the sort of lawmakers needed here. I mean, it's all great stuff, but here we have a quote here, key quote. Our brains, our bodies, and our society have been evolving together to shape human development for millennia, influencing our communities, our culture, and our society. Within the last 20 years, the advent of portable technology and social media platforms is changing what took 60,000 years to evolve. That came from Mitch Prinstein, um, Chief Science Officer for the American Psychological Association. So, what we're seeing now is just unprecedented. The way that we're engaging with the world is this is just so unique and new and brand new. But all the legislation in the world, we still need to be there for show up for our kids
Yeah.
Um, there's no easy answers, right? Like the
There's
peer
no easy
pressure and all this, but
yes. Not just peer pressure, but the parents, they it's a reflection of them. I mean,
yeah,
they're allowing it to happen, and they're probably doing it themselves, if not more. So you have to it's accountability and boundaries. I think
let's
you're
jump
dealing
over
with
here because
those
as
that
a
are tricky.
solution, let's let's
Uh-huh.
let's check this out, Heidi. I know you got your notes,
Solution.
but forest
Oh, let's
therapy,
go.
right? So
Oh,
good old hippy dippy stuff that I love that
it it
catches
works.
up. The science catches up to the hippies. But so we're talking about this. We're like, okay, what are some proposed solutions? Well, what they call forest therapy. Now, again, it's nice if you have like a proper forest, but some wooded area. I'm down here in the South Bay, we've got what called like a green belt. Where you can go down and just kind of walk through this little area of lime trees, even if it's a park. But another study, there's been tons of these, but this was a new one. Study finds mental and physiological health benefits for kids and teens who participate in forest therapy. Forest therapy, by the way, it originated. This idea was in Japan, and they did a lot of really good research on it. And this study that found that two structured forest bathing walks, they call it forest bathing as well,
Awesome.
significantly improve the health and well-being of children and adolescents who have mental health challenges. The improvements were both psychological and physiological in areas of mindfulness, nature connection, mood states, place meanings, and physiological health. So there's actual like physiological changes. So especially if you're in a heavy wooded area like a proper forest, you get these kind of compounds that are coming off. They're called like terpenes is primarily one of them. And terpenes are these wonderful feel good molecules that, I mean, we all know that feeling, right? I remember being 14 years old going down to Starved Rock. Remember
Yeah.
Starved Rock in Illinois?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was in a real pissy mood the entire time down. I did not want to be, you know, uh, on this family trip. And we got down there, unloaded the van, and kind of a family immediately made a beeline to this trail. And I remember about 5 minutes into the hike, I felt amazing. And
It's the
I didn't
best.
even want to, I
Yeah,
mean,
you're
that
like,
was what stood out
"Me,"
to me to this day was I was in a terrible mood and I was determined to stay in a terrible mood.
'cause you're
And 5 minutes into the trail, I,
you
you couldn't make me feel bad if you
yeah.
tried. I just literally felt incredible. And
There's your
it is
grounding. You're
exactly. You
grounded.
got grounding, you
You're
got
pulling yeah,
electrons coming off, like earthing and grounding. All this stuff, guys, this is real stuff. I mean, you can put your
and
bare
it's
feet up onto the
science-y.
ground
Mhm.
and, you know, abundance of electrons coming off the earth. We have free radicals. These are molecules looking for, they're missing an electron and they're looking to stabilize. They need some excess electrons. That's what we call antioxidants. Well, the earth has tons of these electrons that it's willing to give away to you if you plug in. So
Mm,
hug a tree, walk
yes.
barefoot on some grass for a while, get your feet into the ocean if you're lucky enough to, live out
Yeah.
here or somewhere where you have a body of water, or
Mhm.
even our own private ocean in Chicago, Lake Michigan. Get out.
I was just gonna say, Lauren, speaking of '90s, my instinct when I would get depressed or just go down, I would just start walking, and I'd always gravitate towards the lake or the zoo or the like, just go. And the grounding alone, just getting towards water. With that being said, if you have like, well, I have nothing by me, take a shower, take a bath. Water can do it. Like
Running
water's super
water.
grounding. Um,
Yeah.
but you can find a tree, I hope. I hope we're not the Lorax situation. I mean, there's a trees. Hug a tree.
The take home is I'd encourage everybody to look up things like grounding, look up forest therapy / forest bathing. Look this stuff up. You'll be amazed at the wealth of research done on this stuff. And at first blush, it seems real woo-woo, but it's not.
And I
It's where
have
we
not
belong.
it's where we belong, and I have not met one child with whatever disability or whatever spectrum you wanna put them on that has not been grounded and calm walking on a hike through the forest. I have they're all like, "Mm," it's life changing. That's the
It
ultimate therapy
works.
in my eyes. Yeah,
Yeah, it works for
yeah.
sure.
That's why I'm
So,
so
I mean,
spoiled with my outdoor classroom. I'm
yeah,
so
I mean,
spoiled, it's
but
half the work.
it's again, guys, it's these things that you keep hearing again and again, it's, yeah, we'll do those. You know, whenever you hear a lot of this, "I've tried everything." Have you? You know,
Yeah.
um, not to be that guy with people, but sometimes it's like, Have you tried everything?"
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because these are simple things that if you can integrate them into life on a regular basis, do the best you can, it really does matter. It
Mhm.
really does matter. So, look
And that's
into this and
stepping up into parenting. It means make some changes and
yeah,
sacrifices. We don't have time. We can't go all the way to the four. If you want the help, make the time.
absolutely. Amen. Amen. So that's yeah, there's a kind of like a few,
Those are good.
posts
Those are
that sort of
juicy.
all kinda group together, I feel, and there's a few others, but Heidi, what do you want me to grab next?
Well, what's
Should
heavy?
we
I don't want
move
to get
in?
too heavy, but I mean, it went one after the other. Cancer,
Yeah,
diabetes, mental
yeah,
health.
I
It was
know,
like boom, boom. I was
I
like,
was
oh,
finding some pretty heavy ones this past
yeah.
couple of weeks.
But maybe you can make it pretty.
Well,
or
yeah,
or
yeah,
the studies, they keep studying because I think there's people that are still willing to pay maybe for quick fixes. But
yeah,
as we've just talked for 20 minutes about grounding and getting out there and doing all this, it kind of all still ties together in my opinion.
yeah. I think we're at a fork in the road. I'm gonna just go ahead and pull this one up because I think that this kinda touches on this fork in the road where we're at, right? This,
Oh, yeah.
showed that parents when we're talking about parenting and where people's head is at right now these days, parents' growing interest in weight loss drugs for children, and so this is what I said at the beginning of the year, right? When the American Academy of Pediatrics brought forward their new guidelines. Do you remember that, Heidi? We had an episode at the beginning of the year. I think it was a February episode where I said, what's gonna happen now is there's gonna be a normalization of these medications,
Yep.
and they are really promoting these heavily. Y When I go through news stories, I'll tell you this, it's funny, um, week after week as I'm looking at news stories, they're running a lot of the same material. They're focusing in on stories behind, success stories behind these weight loss drugs, and media outlets around the country are really, really, um, pushing these stories out there, and this is creating an effect, I think, on parents that are like, "Okay, this is kinda becoming a normal thing," right? Um
Mhm. Mhm.
kind of like now here we are a little bit less than a year later, and we're seeing a third of parents are interested in weight loss drugs like Ozempic for their children.
Mm.
1 in 3 parents said they are definitely or probably interested in having their children use GLP-1 prescription drugs if they were available. While nearly 2 in 3 parents who have children with weight-related issues said the same. So, in other words, of the parents that had children that had weight-related, they were more likely, which makes sense. What I think we're seeing when I say fork in the road is we're seeing 2 things kinda happening right now, and it's very indicative of this split society we found ourselves in, where every day, I think more and more parents are sort of washing their hands of big pharma, and they're trying to kind of find another way, right? And then I think there's a whole subset where people are buying in, right?
Yep. Yep.
They're seeing this, and I get it on that side, right? I mean, we can certainly of course, you know where my stance is. I'm always trying to find drug-free solutions, as I know how these drugs work, and I know that ultimately you're gonna have to find these methods out anyway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
And
eventually, there's a
sustained.
reckoning, right? You're just kind of
Mhm.
prolonging this
Mhm.
this. But on the side, so let's kind of look to the side of the parent and try to get into their head is why are they interested in it, right?
Yeah.
And look, in their mind, they're the "I've tried everything" people, right?
They're
So
desperate.
those of you
Yeah.
listening, right?
Yeah.
I've tried everything, Lawrence." Well, have you? Have we looked at motivational interviewing? Have we looked at connection before correction? Have we looked at active listening? Have we looked at taking time to get outside a little bit? Or these things that
Are you
have you
modeling
tried
the
everything?
behavior? Yeah, are you
Right, because
modeling?
if
Mhm.
trying everything is shaking your finger and telling your kid to eat better, right? Have you looked at your own life and are you leading by example? There's a pretty big checklist before people can comfortably come to me, and say, "I've tried everything." Um, so
Good.
yeah, I do believe that we're seeing these two things happening at the same time, and it's kind of wild, really, to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. To get super dark. You remember when Adderall and Ritalin came out and stuff? Again, the late 90s.
Right.
But I remember being in a school at that time, kind of educating downtown Chicago, that when those came out, some of the parents needed it more than the kids. And so they were putting kids on it so they could get it so they didn't have to
Correct.
say they were on it. So I'm like,
Correct.
sorry to be the Debbie Down here, but that does happen too. So you really got to check yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And like I said, these medications, now they're, beginning to do clinical trials on children as young as 6, right? We talked
Oh.
about that in a previous episode. They've been approved
Mhm.
for, I think it's 12 and up now, 12 or 13 and up. They work by killing the appetite. I think that there's a lot of conflation. Yes, there are some genetic components, right? And I think that every parent would like to think, oh, it's just genetics. Then it kind of puts them off the hook a bit, right? But if we look at, again, go back to the 50s and 60s, look at what childhood obesity rates were. I
Mhm.
mean, we can't put that squarely on the shoulder of genetics. Look at current state to state, as we've talked about.
Mhm.
Why is Montana's childhood obesity rate 2.5 times less than West Virginia's?
Yes.
Newsflash. It's
Yep.
diet and lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
They're not genetically different creatures.
yep. And I know we've talked about this before too, but so recently we did this family tree project and my son interviewed his grandma and he asked a lot of questions that he didn't know. Like what was it like as a child? What was school like? She's like the desks were bolted in the ground. We had an ink well. We had to do our own ink. But the thing that made him kind of go, "What?" was she goes, there were very few food choices, not like we have today. Not the
Right.
grocery stores were not like we have today. She was very little little sweets. There wasn't like the abundance we have. And I remember that episode we did with Lawrence where you were like, honestly, there's just like a few ingredients and then they just repackage it all and reshape it all a
Basically,
million different ways, and that's where they get you. And you get to the root, just like with any ailments, you get to the root of it. So grandma's interview to him, he was like, oh. And she's like, we had one kind of lettuce. That blew him away too. She's
yeah.
I even chimed in, I go, "No, mom, I know." She goes, "Hide." Yeah. That was an
Yeah.
Elmer's, by the way.
Well, the grocery store had 100 items and about 60 to 70 were worth your time. The
Mhm.
grocery store now has 60,000 items and 60 to 70 are worth your time.
Mhm.
Nothing's changed. And yeah, to the point, to reiterate it, it's an illusion of variety. The same commodity crops just put into a different shape and form and mixed with different additives and preservatives, but corn, wheat, soy, sugar, all these cheap commodity crops that they're putting into the food supply in every which way. And it
Yeah.
gives you this sense of like, oh, I'm eating a lot of different foods. You're not. You're just not.
Yeah.
And you're eating food that has been stripped of its whole food nutrition, and then they kind of got to fortify it and put synthetic vitamins and minerals back. I mean, it's a mess.
Ugh.
So these are things that, you know, basic stuff. Again, there's nothing hiding here. Good old fashioned whole foods. If it's food that's been around, from 100 or more years ago, it's probably a good deal. If it's a food that has a TV or radio commercial, you might want to think about it. Right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this. These are
Yeah.
again, to go to the beginning, is these are some simple things, but it's actually putting them into action. And that's what I try to help people do, is like how to practically help people based on their life, based on their day-to-day actual life. How do we actually put this into action? It sounds good on paper, but how do I actually employ it?
That's
That's
awesome,
that's
Lawrence.
that's what I
Look
do.
at you. That's what you do. Kidsgethealthy.com.
And
It's
kidsgethealthy.com.
so awesome because you have children that are clients. So it's not like you're just saying we should do this. It's like you are doing this and you've
I
seen
just and I
results.
just I got an iMessage popped up. It's with one of my kids texting me,
Oh, so you
giving me a texting me an update. Texting me an
Oh,
update, and, I love it when they do that. The coolest thing is I've told some of my kids, and obviously this is all done through the parents and stuff, and everything is fully transparent of as far as like how we engage and this and that. But I said, look, if you ever need help, I don't care what time it is. And I had a kid text me. It was 1:30 in the morning.
Oh.
And he was like, I'm so sorry. My tummy hurts. And, and I said, I am so proud of you. I woke up, but I told him I was so proud of him for doing that. And I told his
Yes,
mom the next
speaking
day,
up.
that was awesome. I said, you know what? Never feel bad about that. Because you have to hold me accountable. I told you no matter what time it was. I made that promise to you. And the fact that he felt safe enough to reach out, and we took care of the situation. And so,
That's huge, Lawrence.
try to
Yeah.
be there, and to try to be there in a situation where they just want someone, to talk them through something. We did
Yeah.
some little bit of breathing exercises and some different things, but
Yeah.
this is what it's about. And all of these things, you see the same themes keep coming up again every week. Every time we talk, every show. Process food,
Empowerment.
mental health.
That's my word.
Okay, all this stuff. Empowerment, 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 empowerment. Because once you're empowered and you have the knowledge, that's a wicked combination. You're trouble. You're trouble for the system.
Oh my
You got
gosh.
knowledge. You've got a sense of autonomy. You have critical thinking. Watch out. Good things are going to
Boom.
happen.
Yes. Oh, I love getting to the roots.
Getting to the
Beautiful,
roots.
Lawrence. Well, that sounds like a natural. What do you think? Wind down a little
I
bit.
think so. I think we're at a good time to wind this down.
Wind it down.
And I would say anybody that visits my Instagram, I love it when people comment, or you can direct message me if you have questions, or if you want to reach out to even, see if we might be a good fit to work together. You can message me directly through Instagram, or Lawrence at kidsgethealthy.com. Lawrence at kidsgethealthy.com.
Okay.
But yeah, Instagram's an easy way to get a hold of me. I do free discovery calls too. So if people want to just get on a call for 20 minutes or so to just see if we're a good fit. But a lot of information you can go on. I put up posts every single day.
Every day. And to music, which is
There's
nice.
music, right? There's music there for you while you're reading. And you can go back through the archives over the last 7 or 8 months that I've been posting daily. Go back to the archives of our show, because there's some really amazing material. I try to, for people that have kind of heard some of our shows before, like some of this is, might be just repetitive a bit, but repetition matters. But some of you that are new, look back on some of the old episodes. Change talk, motivational interviewing,
Yeah.
especially because that's a great episode on how to interact with children and how to put them in a position of power and how to remind them that they're the expert of their life. And that's my approach. My approach is, yes, I'm a nutrition guru or whatever you might call it, fine, but I'm not the expert of the individual. I'm not the expert of your kid. I'm not the expert of you. And I want to find out what expertise you have to bring to the table and help you see that so that you can solve your problems and not deal with learned helplessness and not be a kitty cat in the middle of the jungle.
Empowerment. Last night we were in Chinatown at dinner, so table of 10. And I brought up the mouth breathing episode because this fellow was talking about his overbite and all these things and how he's got this paradigm. I'm like, there's a mouth breathing situation. He's like, what? Yeah, I do breathe mouth. His wife's like, you do that.
It's amazing.
Like, I'm going to send you a link to an episode.
With martial arts, you were talking about that.
Yeah, that was the kung fu.
Breathing is, breathing is really important with that.
Oh yeah, he works with them. These were the parents. Yeah.
Yeah,
The kids are on it. The kids are on it. And I was so proud of Huck because he sat with the kids. We left him over there. He tried a shrimp. Mr. Beige Man tried a shrimp.
Because
the
tell me a little bit about that, because I remember during one of our talks, you brought that up. You brought him up as far as like his hesitancy toward new
Yeah.
foods and different things. So he tried something new.
Tried something new, and the crutch, like the victim card, was always about the tongue tie, and he's like, "Well, I can't swallow well," and
Mm.
it just became his thing, and so we're working on the tie, but we're also trying, recreating the same dishes he likes, but just try I literally, the giant was like, "Don't turn around, or he's gonna stop," but I think Puck just ate half a shrimp, and I'm like, "Yes,"
I'm glad
and
he's not allergic. That would have been like
no,
the
yeah,
plot twist. I shouldn't, but I'm sorry, my dark
I did
humor.
mention
But
that
it's like he
afterwards,
just tried
yeah.
a new food. Oh
Yeah.
no.
But I swear the
um,
peers had something to do with it because everybody had their own there's 10 of them sitting at one table and they had the lazy Susan going around.
yeah.
And so I was very proud of them, but I also didn't make it such a huge. I was just like, very nice. I go, "What's it taste like chicken?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Not very good chicken, but kind of." He wasn't
No,
that
it's
into it, but he tried.
a
So
nice acknowledgement and exposure and kind of a low pressure environment. He's there. There's his peers that he's familiar with. That's again, that's the key.
mhm,
Repetitive exposure with no pressure, a no
yeah.
pressure environment. That's the secret. Don't get frustrated. We want kids, I gotta eat this, eat this. It just adds pressure and it actually delays.
Mhm,
You see that again and again in the study. It actually delays them trying those foods. But when they feel like they're in a low to no pressure environment, keep exposing the foods, eat them yourself, right? If they don't want Brussels sprouts, fine. But keep serving them up, keep presenting them, keep eating them. Ultimately, usually works out where they want to try those foods. But
yeah.
there's no rush.
No
No
rush.
rush.
Awesome. Yeah, it
Good
was really
stuff.
cute.
So
Yay,
we
good
are
stuff
we are
again.
like we're coming up now. I guess we could probably we'll sneak one more in, right? Before the
Oh,
end of the
before the
year.
end of the year? Heck
Yeah.
yeah! That would
I think
be
we'll
good
get
if we focus on the holidays. There's so
22.
many different celebrations.
Let's do a
22.
holiday episode
Yeah.
and
Navigating the holiday parties and, that kind of stuff, and your children being unsupervised with all the sodas and all the things.
yeah,
Just those kind of discussions might be kind of fun.
love it.
I'm sure we'll bundle it up with empowerment and the holistic approach, which I
Of
love so
course.
much.
Always, always, always.
Well, thank you, folks, for tuning in. Again, our heavily censored platforms, we would love it if you could hit that like, subscribe, and share, especially with some friends or family members that you think could benefit. And yeah, thank you so very much. We'll see you every 2 weeks at 2 p.m. Pacific.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, everyone. And next episode 22.
Woohoo. See you soon. Thanks, Lawrence. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Heidi. This is fun as always.
Oh, bye bye, everybody.